Good afternoon, everyone. Happy hump day. I hope you've all had a good week so far. Now, this particular video is for all of you that have either just started cooking the books, have taken over an existing cooking the books user, or are thinking about using cooking the books and have the fear that you need to put in a lot of effort to actually make it work. So I'm going to go through sort of step by step the very basic things that you need to do to actually get cooking the books to give you any sort of information, because I am sure most of you will find it's a lot less than you think. So as always, you need to actually have a login to the database. Now, on this homepage, pretty much the only information that we are using is your invoices and your revenue. And all of this information gets built up purely based on that. And that sort of puts us to your first bare minimum level, which would be purchase versus revenue. Now, in order to get a decent report, let's face it, you do also then need to have some sort of stock on hand. And realistically, if you want a theoretical versus actual, you need your recipes. Your recipes then become your menu, so on and so forth. Now, just quickly going through how to set up your company information here for when you're placing orders. If you choose to, we do recommend it, but it's not essential. And the sort of easiest way to get the most out of the system with putting in the minimum effort is setting up your email for receiving an invoice. So you just need to set this up as something like hotel, insert your own name there, at cookingthebooks.com.au. So if you try and save this and someone else has already taken that email address, it will come up with an error. So you don't have to worry about doubling it up. But you can do anything at cookingthebooks.com.au that isn't already taken. The moment you hit save on this screen, that is an active link, and any invoice in a PDF format that isn't a scanned image that gets emailed to that address will come up ready for you to tick that you've received those goods and therefore form your cost of goods. And this means that you don't have to sit there and enter in your pricing differences every single time it changes in price, which for things like fruit and veg and seafood can get really frustrating and time consuming. If you're not sure with these invoices, if they have or haven't come through, we have an invoice history there for you. So, we've got one that was an image here that hasn't processed because it's an image. If you had statements, it would come through. You'd also have a fail there if something had gone wrong, or if you're waiting on a template. Any new suppliers that are new to us, we do need to obviously learn how to read that invoice so that it can come through for you. So if anything gets held up, you will be able to see this here in the invoice history, which brings us into actually processing those invoices. So the majority of the work that you're going to do is in stock. So if you just want to work out your expenses, you'll never have to go any further than stock. All of your old invoices are here in the invoice history. You've got your PDFs here if you ever want to look back on them. You can just pop open, and there they are. To process those invoices that your suppliers have so nicely sent to you to make your life a little bit easier, you just have to go through, find the PDF invoices here, pick the one that you want to process. It will come up with any purchase orders that you've placed. You can either link it to a purchase order, or if you didn't bother putting a purchase order through, you can just hit no match order. Any code that the system cannot pick up in your database, it will notify you to. You can then link it to an existing product and it will search the system for that particular product. You can edit it if the information doesn't look quite right before that you add it. Pops everything up there. You can add it just as it is, or if it's something that you've got as a one-off or it's a random note or something like that that you don't want, you can delete it. It will still process that particular invoice, but it won't add it to your stock maintenance. So here we go. We have the total from the invoice. We have the quantity, cost, everything there ready to go. All you have to do is check and save. This will now show you that you haven't ordered anything, therefore it's been over delivered 2.89 kilos, but your price is updated, it's in there, it's added to your inventory, and that will give you things like an item spent report, obviously your purchase totals, and that probably would be the bare minimum. No orders, no revenue to compare it to, purely expenses and expense reporting. Obviously, if you want to really control your expenses, it is best to place orders to compare those invoices to. And that means that you can really hold your suppliers accountable for every single price increase. Anytime that you've ordered 10 kilos and you magically get 18, which is just a little bit more than what you'd expect a variance to be for meat in terms of sizes. And you can really make sure that you are keeping an eye on what's happening. And also, if you've got staff that are placing bigger orders than they need to, you can stop it before you ever get that invoice. So you just simply select the supplier that you want to place an order to, the day that you want it delivered, hit add. It's got the pantry list that we've uploaded for that supplier for you. You just run down the list, enter in the amounts that you need. Send your electronic order. You can write a note in here if you want to. Again, this is the least effort you need to put in. So obviously we're just going to send that as is, and that's there ready to compare against your invoice. So if you are expecting an invoice of $12, you get an invoice for $15. You can see exactly where those extra $3 came from. Was it over delivery? Have you been charged more for particular items? Sometimes things get on your invoice that weren't even on your order, just from obviously human error entering invoices. There are heaps of things that can happen. And we always recommend comparing your invoice to your order, because that actually means that you know what you're receiving. Otherwise, the person ticking off the invoice is just going to tick whatever's on the invoice so long as it's physically in front of them. So they might not have even been ordered in the first place. It could have been a mistake. If you're placing orders over the phone, things are misheard, things like that. Now, to work out your purchases, that's all you need. But obviously, more importantly, you want to know your stock used. So you want to know the stock that is on hand at any given time. And that means you need to do a physical stock take. Now, once a month is sort of the recommended least amount that you do it, but we do have obviously some customers that only do it once a year for their financial reporting. If you are doing it once a month, we try and make this as painless as possible by allowing you to create templates so you can break down your stock area into tiny little areas, or you can filter only from your last stock take and anything that you've been invoiced for since. So we select the stock take you want to base it off. This will come up with only the things that were in stock take and anything that had been invoiced for since that day. Now, obviously, this is a fake database. We don't have a lot of products coming in, but for you, you should have a much smaller list. As you can see, we've got 4,000 items here. If we want to do that filter again, you can hit filter in here from stock take and anything that's been ordered since. So now we've got 46. So effectively, there should be nothing on your shelves that wasn't counted to begin with or ordered since then. So this will save you a lot of time doing your stock take, and definitely get yourself a tablet, because then it means you don't have to print it out and type it in again. You can just do it all in one step on the tablet. Just make sure you're always connected to the internet, especially in things like your walk-in freezer. Now, that's all you need to do to stock take. Just enter in the quantities. We know the pricing because we've got a record of all your invoicing, and that's literally all there is to working out your purchase part. Now, when it comes to revenue, if you're lucky enough to use one of the amazing point of sale systems that we actually link in with directly, such as Impos, Revel, Counter, H&L, people like that, then your revenue is just going to appear every day. You don't even have to have a look at it, except obviously if it stops, which very rarely happens, and then will happen automatically for you. For those of you that are on different point of sales that you're unable to get to integrate, all you have to do is hit add. Most of the time there is a default business department set up if you haven't set up different ones. So you just hit your default business department, hit select, I do apologize. I've managed to get one with absolutely no revenue in there. Let's try this one. Here we go. So this business department has multiple revenue streams. Again, we're talking about the least effort possible. So you don't need to have lunch, dinner, and things like that set up as different revenue streams. You can just have one default department and one revenue stream. So all you have to do is either enter in your sales inclusive or exclusive of GST, and we'll work out the difference for you. If you want to split it up, you can divide that into your different revenue streams there. Hit save, you've added your revenue. Now, if you have a stock on hand, all of your invoices processed, and then your revenue, you can do it daily, you can do a total for the week. If you're doing monthly stock takes, you can just do a total for the entire month. From there, that will give you your food cost report, which goes off your opening and closing stock take, purchases in between versus your revenue. Now that's the report most people obviously want to get out of the system. So going through that again, we recommend you place orders, but it isn't essential. All of our reports go off the invoices. If you don't want to type in all your invoice data, get your suppliers to send PDF invoices to your setcookingthebooks.com.au email address. So all you need to do is tick that you've received it. You don't have to type in any details. Count your stock on hand and enter your revenue to compare it to. And that means that when you do a food cost report, it literally takes seconds just to download the report. So you've got your stock on hand values, you've got your purchases. That calculates your stock on hand, cost of goods sold versus your revenue to work out your food cost percentage. Now, obviously, this is not a real database, and if your food cost percentage is nearly 400%, definitely give us a call, because that is not good. You are losing money at an extreme rate. In terms of what your food cost should be, it really depends on the business and how you run your labor and things like that. Those of you that have amazing venues with your high rent really need to look after your food cost, but definitely let us know if you don't think your food cost is sort of standard for the industry. Most people do still sit at that 30% that most people, obviously relate to food costs, 30% food, 30% labor, 30% overheads for a 10% profit. Obviously, if you get your food costs down and your others down, that just equals more profit for you. Now, I won't really go into wastage because it's not really something that you need to do too much. But if you do want to put in wastage, it's here as well. Now, for those of you that do things like buffets or cakes on display, the wastage records can be great. There are a few different reports that you can pull out for that. For those of you that are doing display things that are getting thrown away very regularly, you can do a purchase versus wastage report. So it will show you how many you've purchased versus how many you've thrown away, so that you can reduce the number that you're ordering, or perhaps not even sell that particular item if it's just not selling much at all. Now, theoretical cost of goods. Really important to remember that your recipes are theoretical cost of goods. Obviously, you want to cost out a recipe before you sell it, but if that recipe isn't followed, the recipe becomes irrelevant, which is why it wasn't one of the first things that I said you need to focus on. You need to get your actual cost of goods right, and then you can work out which recipes are making you the most, the least, and things like that, especially if you've already got your menu working. So when you first implement Cooking the Books, start with the inventory, not the recipes. You're already selling those recipes. So even if you cost them out and they work out that they're losing you money, you can't do anything until you change your menu again. Now, always start with your base recipes. If you have your base recipes, it means that when you do your finished dish, all you have to do is load your existing recipes, add your sides, add your sauces, add everything that you've already got ready, and just add the garnish and a selling price, and your recipe is done. If you do have raw stock, obviously, as we all know, you just go into raw stock, add the stock. If you can't even be bothered looking at which supplier it is, you can just search here in all stocks. We'll find anything that contains the word orange for you there. Now, because we know the cost of everything, all you need to do is put in your selling price, and that will give you your food cost percentage. You can also do a food cost percentage with labor here if you wanted to as well, and the number of portions you get out of the recipe. Now, costing a recipe obviously isn't a huge amount of fun at the best of times, but if you really don't want to do a full recipe card with things like method and ingredients and pictures, you can just go through and work out your costing, which is what the system's designed to do first and foremost, is all your financial analysis. So all you have to do, combine your base recipes, add your raw stock ingredients, and enter the price, and you have a costed recipe. And because we know your invoices are priced on each individual item, we will update your recipe for you. Now, in that admin section that I first went to, you can set your food cost limit. You don't have to look at this recipe again. The system will notify you if the recipe goes over that food cost limit. And that's literally all there is to working out your theoretical per dish cost. Now, again, definitely theoretical. You'd have to do things like comparing your theoretical to actual cost of goods to work out if your recipes are being followed. Start doing stock variances and things like that to work out which recipes aren't being followed. But in the ideal situation, you should have a very similar theoretical and actual cost of goods unless something is going very wrong in your kitchen, which you're probably going to know well and truly before you start using cooking the books anyway. You will have worked out that there's something wrong. Now, once your recipes are costed and you know that each dish is making you money, you can go into your menu builder. Now, it sounds like a lot of work by this stage, and we're talking about the minimum that you need to do, but the menu builder just literally means drag and drop. So you've already got all your recipes costed. You just need to do the headings that you literally just drag in. Search your recipe book for the recipes that you want to sell. Drag and drop. Here, you'll then have the ability to do your menu analysis. Now, again, if you have linked your point of sale, you can fill this in. If you haven't, you can just type in your quantity sold, and this will give you your theoretical food cost percentage that you can compare against your actual food cost percentage to work out why things may have gone wrong. Is it because there's a low gross profit on any of your particular items? Are you selling more of the low than you are of the high? It should give you an idea. You've also got the costing to work out your average GP for each subheading, as well as the menu overall. So you can make sure when you do write a new menu that you have a nice balanced menu there ready to go. So this is pretty much as far as most people will take the system. As I said, you can start doing things like stock variances and things like that. But unless you have a problem or you really want to put the effort into maintaining your food costs as tightly as possible, it's probably not necessary. So again, invoices, stock on hand, and revenue will give you your food cost. Recipes and combining them into your menus and typing in the sales that you have made on those recipes will give you your theoretical cost of goods. And that is a lot more information than most of you will probably currently be getting. You only know at the moment the numbers that you've been selling out of your point of sale. And if you have put in a static food cost percentage into your point of sale, you should get a rough cost of goods. But obviously, every time a price changes, your cost of goods change, and therefore your theoretical cost of goods is probably a lot more inaccurate than you realize if that's the way that you're doing it. We update the pricing for you, so it's one less thing that you need to worry about. And that's about it. As I said, there are a heap of other things. Wastage can be important for some people. If you're doing, functions or catering, obviously the recipe order is going to be hugely important. But for a general business, invoices, stock on hand, revenue, recipes, and building of the menu are the only things that you really need to worry about if you want to do the minimum amount possible. Obviously, if you do want to do more, happy to help. We've got menu engineering, yield percentages, a whole bunch of things that we can help you with. But again, this is doing the bare minimum that you need to do. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, and I always forget, budget remaining. So again, if you just want to do your purchases and you don't really care about your revenue, you can just set yourself a weekly budget. This will decrement as you purchase, so you can make sure that you are actually sticking to some sort of budget without even needing to worry about doing your revenue to get your percentage of goods against revenue. But yeah, I know this was a slightly longer video than what most people were probably expecting for the minimum amount that you wanted to do, but I just wanted to make sure that people know it's a massive system. There is a lot you can get out of it, but you don't have to put in a huge amount of effort to get that data out. It is really straightforward, especially if you can get your point of sale integrated, your suppliers sending those invoices. All you have to do is approve your invoices, do your stock on hand. We recommend that you do your purchase orders to compare against the invoices you're sending back, but it's not 100% necessary. And that will give you the food cost percentage. And it will probably take you less time over the whole month to enter all that information than what it's currently spending you to compile that information on Excel or whatever you're using to get that food cost report. A lot of people don't even consider stock on hand at the moment because it is really hard to work out those formulas on Excel or something like that. But if you do have any questions, we are here and we're always happy to help. For those of you who haven't tried cooking the books, it is free for the first month. So make sure you head to the website, hit trial, enter any details, give it a go, see if you think it's going to work for you. And if it is easy, as I've just said it is, or if there is actually a lot of work. Setting up your database is the hardest part of cooking the books, which is getting all your stock ready to be imported. Once that's in there, you just manipulate that around to get you the data that you want. So I hope you all have a fantastic Wednesday afternoon. We've got another webinar coming up on Monday for those of you who've been using cooking books for a long time and are starting to get an out of control stock list. We'll show you how to clean that up a little bit. But yeah, hope you guys have a wonderful day and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.